The Nichecast is brought to you by thenichecash.com. You can like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, subscribe to us on YouTube, subscribe to us on iTunes, and of course have a good old breeze through that website while you're at it. Once again, thenichecash.com. We got a bit of a special episode of the Nichecast coming out today. We carefully ignored all NRL, despite the fact that it's starting in less than a week's time, Doc. Carefully ignored it in our regular episode. The reason for that is, as teased, we're going to do a bit of a season preview here. We're going to go through every team. We're going to look at their overs and unders for the seasons, which we pulled from an unnamed bookie. We're not going to tell you. We don't care about the odds. We're just looking at what they thought each team's win total would be for the season, which gives us a nice little gauge on how they're faring as a whole for the 2017 NRL season. We're gonna go team by team, Doc. What do you reckon?
Mate, hit me. I am the god of NRL in New Zealand in Aotearoa, so no one can fuck with me.
Yeah, well, people, you heard that from the Diggity Doc himself. I'm just a mere wild card, but I'll help you. I'll help you out. We're going to start with the Brisbane Broncos. Brisbane Broncos, last year, they won 15 games. They got to the semi-finals where they got knocked out by the North Queensland Cowboys. Over or under, sitting at 14.5 wins.
I got the Broncos under. Wildcard. And I still think the Broncos will be a top NRL team, but I think it doesn't really matter where the Broncos finish in the top 8. And Origin, you've got they're moving towards a slightly younger squad. They've bid farewell.
Corey Parker's retired.
Corey Parker's gone. I think Ben Hunt's, he...
Moving on to bigger and better things.
Moving on to bigger and better things with the Dragons, but I don't think he's going to be, playing for a contract. Like, he's already got that, so that desperation isn't quite there. I'm going under. Just, Origin, few new faces in their squad, and in key positions, especially in their forward pack, like, you got guys who are going to be called on to play a lot more minutes. Like, Jared Wallace is gone. That's a low key loss as well. He was big for them last season. They'll still be one of the tougher teams to beat in the NRL, but I don't think they're going to be a dominant force.
Yeah, it seems like a fairly, I don't want to say safe bet, because none of these are safe bets, except maybe for the Knights, but it does seem like the Broncos have taken a slight step back, and a step back that still leaves them in a contending window. It's just that they're not quite, we don't know how much of an influence Corey Parker's loss is going to have, but it's probably safe to say a big one. For one thing, you'll be able to answer this. We're probably going to see Jordan Kahu kicking goals now, aren't we?
You'll see Jordan Kahu kicking goals, and you'll see Josh Maguire probably playing 80 minutes. I reckon Josh Maguire is the perfect dude to take over from Corey Parker, but what the Broncos lack is someone in that Jason Taumalolo, Marty Tapau, David Clemmer, Junior Paulo, someone in that sort of range who can
Jack de Bellin,
someone who can put on a bit of speed around the ruck with their size. I think the Broncos forward pack's all fairly similar, and so that's gonna keep them in many games, and their ability to cover each other, like Adam Blair, Sam Thaiday, Josh Maguire, those sorts of dudes are all fantastic at working on the inside shoulders and covering holes and working hard for each other, and so that makes them tough to beat. But in terms of being a dominant force, you need someone who's going to punch holes, get quick play the balls, and give Anthony Milford and Ben Hunt the little bit of pizzazz they require.
And that's not going to be Corbin Sims?
No, like he's
He's not even the best player in his family.
No, you've already dropped like 3 references to the Dragons in the first team, so I don't know how we're going to do this. But Corbin Sims,
just get used to it, son.
He's pretty similar to Josh Maguire in that regard as well. He's big enough, but he's hard working. He's a grafter. He plays big minutes and does a whole lot of work. So yeah, under.
Just quickly, here comes Dragons reference number 4, Benji Marshall. Question mark?
Benji Marshall, from the outset, I just viewed Benji Marshall as going to the Broncos and doing a job, doing whatever was required from Wayne Bennett. And if that was playing reserve grade, I'm pretty sure Benji Marshall was completely happy to play reserve grade. He would have understood the situation before going to the Broncos. And people are talking about centre, but you've got Jordan Cahill, you've got James Roberts. Halves, Anthony Milford, Ben Hunt. Even the bench utility, like Cody Nikarima, was a crucial part of the Broncos' run to the grand final, where they lost to the Cowboys, and he's going to come off the bench. So I think Benji Marshall's going to spend a lot of time in reserve grade, but I think he's fully prepared for that. Like that's the deal he took on.
To put an NBA spin on it, it's like a veteran minimum contract there. It's going to be like Deron Williams to the Cavaliers, that kind of lesser role, but veteran kind of presence.
Kudos to Benji Marshall because
for sure,
it takes some balls to take a deal like that.
Next up, we have the Canberra Raiders. Last year, pretty surprisingly, actually, they had a great season. They won 17 games, beat Penrith in the semis, but they lost to Melbourne in the preliminary finals. Their over and under drops way back. They won 17 last year. They're only at 12.5. What do you reckon there?
12.5. I've got the Raiders over.
Yeah, it seems fair, right? Like, they haven't got... I mean, no, they overachieved last year, but they haven't got that much worse, have they?
No, they haven't got that much worse. They're going to have, Aiden Caesar, Blake Austin are going to play the full season. No Origin. You've got Jack Wyden's going to play the full season at fullback. Josh Hodgson's nowhere, he's not in any Origin frame either. He's going to play the full season at dummy half, of course, barring injuries. I don't quite think the Raiders, I don't view Aiden Caesar and Blake Austin as quite being a premiership winning halves combination.
Nah, fair enough.
And regardless of how beastly their forward pack is, and it is excessively beastly, I think that's what you require. But they are going to be a very strong regular season team.
I mean, that doesn't really look like they've signed anyone fancy, but they haven't really lost anyone fancy either. I mean, Paul Vaughan's gone. He was a starter, wasn't he? Frank Paul's no longer there, but I mean, Frank Paul is... How old's he now?
Well, neither of those dudes featured in the back end of last year, so... No dramas.
No, exactly. And was it Edric Lee? Yeah,
it was an Australian. He's gone to the Sharks.
That was strange.
But
is that like a salary cap thing? Because that was so close to the season.
Well, I think it's the shambles of the NRL player transfer market. Just condense it down to 1 week and easy. But the Raiders do have plenty of depth in their outside backs, and there's a guy, Papua New Guinea guy, Kato Otio, who is desperate for an opportunity. So you got Jordan Rapana on one wing, you have Jack Wyden at fullback, and I would suggest that this Kato Otio guy will feature on the other wing for the Raiders.
So the Raiders should be okay back in the old playoffs then, judging by that.
Yes, whether I'm not convinced that they will go deep into the playoffs, into the finals, but they'll be there. What
else is there to say on the Raiders? Probably not much. Shall we swing on to the Canterbury Bulldogs? Another team made the playoffs last year, although they didn't go very far. They lost 28-12 to Penrith in the first the qualifying round. 14 games won last year. 11.5 is the over-under. Are they going to do it, Doc?
No. This is
under. I love it.
This is a crazy one. I think, I've been reading a lot of talk from their halves and people around the Bulldogs about how they are going to change how they play this year with less perhaps ball playing from their forwards.
There's one thing the Bulldogs know how to do, it's talk.
Yeah, and a little less responsibility from their forwards and controlling the game, but I just can't see them being as penetrative. I can't see them offering the same
penetrative.
I can't see them offering the same penetration as other teams, and I also think that there's other teams who are getting. This is a trend. There's other teams that are going to be a lot better this year that are going to push certain teams down. And
right, someone has to get worse for someone else to get better.
Yes, and the Bulldogs are going to be. They're going to be a tough opposition because you got David Clemmer, you got Sam Cassiano, James Graham. You got guys like that who can do some. Sam Cassiano is just a certified weapon, but if they
don't have too many points in them, do they?
Yeah, and if you shut down a few specific guys, you're shutting down the Bulldogs. And I think opposition teams are going to have definite plans in place for that.
Well, I guess the old Bulldogs aren't going to be repeating in the playoffs then, if that's the case. I think, because what is it, 24 games, isn't it? 26 rounds, 24 games with 2 byes. So, swinging through, who was the lowest placed team to make the finals last year? It was the Bulldogs, wasn't it? No, Titans. Bulldogs were 7th and Titans were 8th. Where are we? Titans won 11 games to get in the playoffs last year, so Bulldogs going under probably means they're not going to go there. I think I've worked that out right. I'm not 100%, but let's swing on to the champions. Cronulla Sharks, 17 games won last year. Obviously have lost McInnes since. A couple others. Ben Barber won't be there. 12.5 is theirs, though. That's even still, even judging for a championship hangover, that's a bit of a drop-off.
It's a big drop-off, and I've got them not dropping off that far. I've got them
going overs.
Over that. Like, you lose Ben Barber, you put Valentine Holmes at fullback.
Yeah, that's decent.
No dramas. McInnes is a big loss because he was about as crafty as they get last season. But they do have plenty of options at hooker, so that shouldn't be too much of an issue. And, you know, the other key figures, Andrew Fafita, James Maloney, Jack Bird, and the job doers like Paul Gallen's going to be in for a big year. I think it's his final season or coming up close. So I can definitely see them. I'm not picking the Sharks to go back to back, but I can definitely see the Sharks being, you know, and similar to the Raiders, I can see them being a very strong regular season team and a team that just is going to be very tough to beat week in, week out, just because they've got so many guys who have been in the NRL for a while and just understand what it takes to roll through that NRL grind every week. And they're one of the teams that has a certified halfback playing halfback who is willing to shine the light on other blokes in his team. And Chad Townsend, like, Chad Townsend is not a fantastic, dynamic, razzle-dazzle sort of half, but Chad Townsend's job is to get, you know, he's a point guard, he's a quarterback, he gets other blokes involved, and when you're doing that alongside James Maloney, you're going to be a pretty difficult team to stop.
Yeah, I know they're obviously going to lose a lot without Ennis because he was so important to what they did last year, but I don't really see why they're going to drop off all that much. They've got a otherwise really consistent team. Like you said, Barber's gone, but Holmes has been groomed for this role for a while now, which maybe left them short one outside back. Oh, guess what? They just picked up Edric Lee before the season. Like, they're pretty well suited to, like you said, maybe in the playoffs that'll be when you see them perhaps without that extra, like, without that monkey on the back trying to shake that thing off of, you know, being the defending champions now all of a sudden. Maybe that's when you'll see that slide. But yeah, like you said, it seems like the Sharks should be all good for the regular season, should win a lot of games. Top 4, do you reckon? Considering the Broncos maybe are going to slide to 5th or 6th based on what we're guessing.
My top 4 now is the Cowboys, Storm.
There's 2 dead sets,
Cowboys,
right? And those
Storm.
are them.
I think the Sharks will be there, and I reckon you're gonna also have the Warriors.
Ooh, a lot of fans of the Penrith Panthers coming up this season as well. They won't be too happy with the 5th placing, but hey, we'll see. We'll come around to them in due course. First of all, we have to go to visit Jared and Conrad at the Gold Coast Titans. 11 wins last year, snuck in with 8th, but then got rather destroyed by the Broncos. It was a close game for a while, if I remember right, but I might not remember right. 44-28 against the Bronx. First round of the playoffs, that was them done, one and done. 11 wins last year, 11.5 is the margin this year. Are they a team on the rise, Doc?
Yes. There's just so many pieces to the Titans puzzle, and there's far too many pieces because they've had to let Zeb Taylor go. There's that they're trying to get Chris McQueen out of there.
Greg Bird's gone.
Greg Bird has gone. But just there, what you need to know about the Titans is last year they earned what they earned on the back of just a a team in unison of their grittiness, if that makes sense. Like they were just all on the same page of how they want to play their football. But this year, there's a chance you could see Ignatius Parsi start at lock. You're going to see Ryan James and Jared Wallace as your starting props. You're going to as well as David Schilling's retired, so he's not going to be there. You're going to see Le'Ve'a Pulu. He offers offloads, bit of razzle dazzle. On top of that, you've got some slick young halves in Kane Algie, Ash Taylor. You've got Conrad Harrell on one edge. You've got an English international and Dan Sargentson on the other edge. You've got Jared Hayne at fullback, who is going to settle into his role in the team a lot better this year. I think last year he kind of, he was coming back into
right shoe, left foot.
Yeah, he was coming into the NRL on the back of some his excursions. So I think he's going to settle in a lot better. But they kind of need Nathan Peets on there as much as they can. But again, not too many Origin players, and they have power. And power in the NRL is a valuable commodity, so I'm going over.
Yeah, they're a team, like you said, who sort of rallied around despite not having a star player most of the season, for about the first 2/3 of the season. Then Jared Hayne turned up. Obviously Jared Hayne is like NRL's golden boy numero uno, as far as the marketing side of things goes, especially. Do you see a way in which that doesn't work out, though? Like a team that's so built on playing for each other, suddenly, then you squeeze in this guy who's just such a massive star. He's obviously a great player as well, but the role that he plays here will not necessarily be the same one as he had with the Eels.
No, because that's what made the Titans a 8th to 10th team in the NRL last season. But then Jared Hayne and a player of his class, and Kevin Proctor, that level of class, and Jared Wallace, those guys make them into a 4 to 6 NRL team. But last year they got everything they got on the back of just being a hard-working, gritty team. But there was a clear ceiling to what they could achieve.
There are a couple examples in the NRL of late of teams that have kind of rebuilt from places when they were just not at all good and not winning games and all these things. The Warriors are a team that every year everyone thinks they're going to do really well, but we've kind of seen in the Jim Doyle era, they've kind of rebuilt a lot of the the squad, really, in that they've signed just a whole bunch of Kiwis going on the back of that. You see the Newcastle Knights are still dead set in the middle of their rebuilding. The Penrith Panthers a couple of years ago invested heavily at first in just reliable veterans, but backed them up with really, really top quality young guys. And now you're starting to see the meshing of those two to where some people are even talking them up as possible premiers. The Titans deserve a lot of credit for the same thing, don't you reckon? They've taken a team that was an absolute shambles a couple years ago, and not that much time at all, really. They've turned it into what looks like a solid top 8 NRL side. And
that's Neil Henry. Their ownership, they're owned by the NRL, so you got to take that with a grain of salt. But Neil Henry's turned Ignatius Parsi from a reserve grader into an NRL beast. Neil Henry's turned Le'Ve'a Pulu from a reserve grader into an NRL beast. Neil Henry gets the best out of Conrad Harrell. Neil Henry has a team of base salary battlers coming together for the betterment of the Gold Coast Titans. That's Neil Henry.
Shout outs to Neil Henry. Next up, the Manly Sea Eagles, the first team we've covered so far who didn't make the playoffs last year. Only won 8 games, in fact. Had one of the worst seasons they've had in a little while. Their bar has been set at 9.5 wins, so a little bit better intended, but will they make that target?
Yes, and that's based on the premise that their spine was all over the place last season. Daly Cherry Evans came and went. His halves partner came and went as well. He was chopped and changed every week. This year, you're going to have Blake Green just doing his job, probably on the left edge where he played for Melbourne. Daly Cherry Evans will run the show. Tom Trebojevic will add his class everywhere. And you're going to have, Apisal Coruscant Apisai Coruscant played in the halves last year, he played at hooker, he played off the bench, so he did everything. If you stick him at number 9 all season, he's going to be dynamic. So you just got a solid team at Manly, and I'd say certainly don't sleep on Manly. Take them over.
Heaps of sort of squad rotation in there. They've had a lot of guys leave, a lot of guys come in, like more than most sides. Would you say that Achille Outta is due a resurgent season, or is Jonathan Wright going to keep him out of the team?
What do you think, Wildcat?
I'm leaning to. I just don't understand why Maaaate didn't play for the Knights anyway last year. It's not like they were trying to lose, so what was the point? I know they wanted to get rid of him, but
yeah, I think his salary might have been a bit too mickey for the Knights. But Jonathan Wright.
Oh, so we'll just play him in reserve grade instead.
Yeah. Well, that's how you get him out of the club. That's how you.
Yeah, true. That's how you edge him to the door.
No, I think that's the thing. You got Maaaate, George Tafua at his best. Like, I'm high on George Tafua at his best. Tom Trbojevic. You're going to have Dylan Walker. They've got a guy, Brian Kelly, who's similar to Dylan Walker. You got Marty Tapau, young Surinen's there as well. Like, you've got some guys who are in that dynamic again. Power, Marty Tapau, power. Dylan Walker, speed, footwork. You got some razzle dazzle there, and I've got the Manly Seagulls making the 8. How about that, Wildcat?
Oh, do you now? Because I was going to say, I mean, hey, Jamie Lyon's retired. That's another, like what we were saying before about Corey Parker. Jamie Lyon, another guy who's just sort of, I mean, emotionally carried that team for quite a few years, captain for a long time. Like that's significant. That matters. I just don't feel the Seagulls are going to be that much better this year. But at the same time, I look at that. I mean, the line, the over and under is set at 9.5. So you win 10 games, you go over, you probably don't make the playoffs. So that's not necessarily, like, the bar hasn't been set too high. But yeah, no, I can understand arguments both ways. I can see why they're going to be that much better. I mean, for one thing, like, any team is just going to be doomed if you can't get that consistency, especially in the spine, but just across, like, your 17, really. You just can't be chopping and changing that much, and the Seagulls just kind of had one of those seasons from hell, so teams tend to bounce back from that.
Affirmative.
Like, they were not the third worst team in the NRL last year. It's just, that's how things go. Well, that's how things go for most ordinary franchises, but there's one that doesn't ever seem to happen to, and that's the Melbourne Storm. 19 wins
AKA
last year.
The San Antonio Spurs of the NRL.
AKA the New England Patriots as well, but less evil. I think the Spurs one works better.
Yeah, I was going to say, depending on who you talk to. Because I wear a Storm singlet around, and I get comments left, right, and centre. So
there was a salary cap, that's not that far removed from Deflategate and Spygate and all those other gates. 19 wins last year, minor premiers. Bar has been set at 15.5. They went all the way to the grand final where they lost 14-12 to Cronulla. Presumably they're going to be in for another big season. I mean, 16 wins out of 24 seems about right.
Yes, I have them going over. Lost Kevin Proctor, but people are still, I feel like, some doubt around Billy Slater. Billy Slater, I reckon he's just going to come back. Cameron Munster, that just pushes Cameron Munster somewhere else. He's a gun no matter what position he plays. They lost Blake Green, who was fantastic on their left edge in conjunction with Cooper Cronk, who played mostly down the right. But they have options. They can play Munster. They can play Brodie Croft. They can do a few things there. And their forward pack, like, they did lose Kevin Proctor, but as I wrote over the summer, Nelson Asafa-Solomona wasn't playing in that grand final. He's been re-signed by the Storm.
Good
and he's a bloke, like, every time he runs the footy, he's running 10 metres and offloading. So expect to see a massive year from him, someone that not many people are talking about, but who basically, power. Nelson Asafa-Solomona gives you that X factor through the middle, and he might only play 20 minutes a game, but that 20 minutes can change the game in the Storm's favour.
So the Melbourne Storm and the San Antonio Spurs, they both have, I guess, what you'd call a long-serving big three. in terms of their playing thing. They both have a iconic, long-serving and grizzly coach. They both have pretty substantial, to use the cliche, team cultures. A winning culture, just repeated winning seasons over and over. Except for that one year that the Storm didn't get any wins because they cheated. But one other thing that the San Antonio Spurs do fantastically in the NBA is they find role players who couldn't get a fit on another team, and they turn them into genuine players. And we probably saw a bit of that with Marika Koroibete over the last couple of seasons, last season or two. He's gone. He's gone to go play some rugby. Josh Adokar, is he going to be the new fella?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, you lose Koroibete and you just bring in Josh Adokar, who's an absolute gun, flyer. And that's what the Storm have. Cameron Munster, Billy Slater at fullback, Soliasi Vunivalu, he's a freak
he's not
on
bad.
one flank. And then you can play young Tona Mapea. He might play at fullback if Billy Slater's not available to keep Cameron Munster in that front line. And then, as you said, Josh Adokar doing a fine job on the wing.
One of the Aussie papers were playing up a thing which seems a little bit, just a little bit condescending, the article, but they did say that Billy Slater has been voted the most popular NRL players among female fans.
Righto.
Information for you to just stock away in the back pocket there, yeah.
Will do.
Hey, guess who's next? The New Zealand Warriors.
The New Zealand Warriors. What's their over-under, their wildcard?
Well, it has been set at 13.5. Last year they won 10 games and missed the playoffs. I don't know, what do you reckon? A lot of people think they're going to be better this year. Stephen Kearney, Roger tuivasa-sheck as captain.
Definitely over. As I said, they could make the top 4.
14 wins will get you close. It'll be in range.
Yep, and I think, regardless of how their forward pack performs, I've highlighted that their forward pack's not the best. But when you throw in tuivasa-sheck, Kieran Foran, Isaac Luke, Sean Johnson, all those dudes run the footy. That's their, Sean Johnson does it differently to Kieran Foran, and Roger tuivasa-sheck does it completely different to those two. Isaac Luke runs the footy completely different to all of the rest of them, but they all run the footy extremely well, and that's going to cover up a lot of the flaws in the Warriors forward pack, and their attacking prowess will be something else. So I'm high on the Warriors, regardless of what anyone says.
And regardless of what anyone said last year and the year before and the year before that. It's been a couple of years since they made the playoffs, so I think that'd probably be enough. If they can get a playoff game at Mount Smarter, that would appease a lot of people. But no, I kind of agree. I think the ceiling, again, every year it's the same thing, but the ceiling, this time for real, the ceiling's very high. I mean, they haven't really brought in anyone new except for some guy called Kieran Foran, but then also, Roger tuivasa-sheck hardly played last season. So that in itself is basically a star signing. And him and Foran, I think, would make a lot of difference to most teams if you squeeze them in. I know for damn sure that improved the Dragons. Definitely improve the Knights. Definitely improve, probably 14 other teams as well. Presumably they're going to improve the Warriors as well, right?
Affirmative on that wildcard.
And no more Jonathan Wright, that's sad.
Depending on who you ask.
Jonathan Wright, eh? He had his moments. How far do you reckon the Warriors can go in the playoffs, though? Say they get top 4, as you reckon.
Well, if they're in the top 4, they're confident, they're playing good footy, and those 4 blokes in line playing good footy, confident footy, wouldn't put it past them. Even though I still think their best year is going to be next year and after that, I certainly wouldn't put it past them to go deep.
Big season for Manu?
Yes.
Gotta be.
He'll be in the World Cup squad.
When everyone sleeps on him, that's a bit like when people start writing him off, he's normally he's a bit like Wayne Rooney in that way, eh? Wayne Rooney's always the same. Just endless criticism and people forget how good he is, and then as it sort of reaches a point where they'll just move on from him. Manu Vatuvei and Wayne Rooney due one of these games as well. Will just come through and, I don't know, score a hat-trick against the Knights or something in round 1. He's still legit. I have full faith in old Manu. Where's Lolohea going to play? Centres of wings on the wing.
So you have Lolohea on the wing, David Fusatura at centre, Solomon Carter at centre, and Manu Vatuvei on the other wing, Roger tuivasa-sheck.
It is actually a really consistent team, isn't it? The fullback's got a couple of changes, but most of these players have been there before. They got a new coach, they got a new captain, but it's not all that different. I mean, there's a solid core there. I can see why everyone thinks the needle's pointing upwards.
Indeed, and it is.
Yeah, I guess it is. Well, I guess we've just joined the chorus. 2017 is the year of the Warriors. New Zealand or Golden State, not sure which yet. We might have to breeze through this one fairly quickly because the Newcastle Knights have been set at 4.5. They only won one game last year. Is there any way they can win 5 times as many as they did last year? Is it possible?
No.
It's not possible.
No, they are under.
They're just not very good yet, are they? Where's the light at the end of the tunnel?
After the season. Maybe the season
So,
after.
the Warriors are the
season
team
after
of this year. The Newcastle Knights are the team of... No, wait till next year. Next year's going to be the year.
No, they're going to
still
be...
gonna be
we need another season or two to really suss out what's happening at our club.
They're just... Like, what's the point? Because you don't... This isn't the NBA or the NFL where you lose lots of games. Oh, cool. First overall draft pick. I get to draft bloody Anthony Davis or, Cam Newton or whoever. Like, there's no benefit other than having a bad team. I get you got to rebuild from somewhere, and it's pretty hard to sign new players when you're not very good. But I mean, surely, right? Like, what's the end game here?
Well, the end game is we're breezing over the Knights.
North Queensland Cowboys won 15 games last year. 15.5 is the set this year. They probably won a couple less than they should have last year, but also they're a team that gets hit very hard by Origin. Were defending champions as well last season. Probably didn't go as well as they would have planned. In the playoffs, they lost to the Sharkies in the preliminary finals. It's the Cowboys, right? They used to be that team where we were waiting for them to take the next step. I think they now are that team who have taken that, and they're just sort of perennially top 4, aren't they, as long as Jonathan Thurston's still there?
Yep, and they are over. Partly because you've also got the young wave is starting to come through as the old wave is reaching their twilight. So they'll definitely, I think they're going to be much better positioned to deal with Origin and stuff like that with the depth they have in their squad now.
Very cool.
That should be right. Losing James Tamo,
big one,
but you've got guys Sam Hoare, Patrick Kafusi, John Asiata, and Ben Hannett. He was good last year as well. There's a young Kiwi guy, Braden Uele, who's a former junior Kiwi. So again, they have pieces that can step into the puzzle and do a fine job.
And they're pretty much in championship or bust mode at this stage. They're such a well built team that have been there before. They're like the Melbourne Storm. They're playing to win it all or nothing at all.
And you've got to remember, they have the Dally M winner in their team, and that Dally M winner isn't Jonathan Thurston.
No.
So that tells you what you need to know about the North Queensland Cowboys.
Mr. Taumalolo. Not a bad player, that guy.
No, he goes all right.
Well, what else is there to say on the Cowboys?
Mate, just keep it moving. Parramatta Eels.
Queensland's finest at the moment. Parramatta Eels then? Yes. Won 13 games last year. Missed out in the finals. 11.5 is their mark. Are they going to do better? Are they going to do worse?
I've got them going under. And this is a string of teams who are going to go under just because of the quality in the NRL. You got, they're going to have to pull something they've got really exciting players, and this is another team that I think is going to get a lot better in the coming years. They've got players like Corey Norman needs. I rate Clint Gutherson. I think Clint Gutherson is going to be a very solid halves partner, but the Eels are going to be a fantastic team when Bevan French is in his second or third year of playing NRL fullback and Corey Norman's still in the team. They've got a good forward pack. But it's Soa Matangi, Manu Ma'u, two of my favourite players, and you've got, you got pieces that are really exciting in that team, but I still think they're going to be a year or two away from really being a force in the NRL, and they're going to be, they're going to beat the top teams. I guarantee that. But I think they're also going to slip up against teams that they shouldn't slip up against.
Yeah, I think you're right. There may be like a star or two short, and they probably thought Foreign was going to be there. I mean, we've heard a couple salary cap rumblings last year, so they're obviously in a tricky place. They're obviously a team that's just not well run in the boardroom. That's been made abundantly clear. But they are a team that's growing towards something, aren't they?
Yes, but it's going to take time to get there.
And have they signed Frank Pritchard?
Yes, they have as well.
Bloody love it. Love it.
Well, okay.
How about the Penrith Panthers, who won 14 games last season? Line is set at 15.5. A lot of people saying overs.
I'm definitely saying under.
You're definitely saying under?
And
I'm not quite sure what the selling point is, that why they're going to be that much, other than the fact they've signed James Tamo. Is he worth like 3 or 4 wins on his own? Probably not.
Well, I think the reason why I'm going under is the reason why many people are going over, and that I've got some of the games like best young players, but you're not going to win the NRL based on your young talent. Like that young, like Matt Moylan's going to be a gun, but he's going to win a premiership down the track. And second year syndrome, Nathan Cleary, Te Martin, a fantastic player, love him, but he's got to establish himself in the NRL week in, week out. And that's the tough thing, is a lot of these guys need to play consistent footy every damn week for them to be a force in the NRL, and I just can't see it happening.
Especially not over the course of the regular season. They could obviously surprise with more than a couple in the playoffs, but yeah, I mean, I'm with you. I don't see the case for them being up like amongst the top couple of teams challenging for that minor premiership. I just don't quite see how that's supposed to happen.
No, me neither.
And James Seguiaro's gone and been replaced by Mitch Raines, so that's also a weird one.
Ooh, yeah.
For a couple of different reasons. But we'll move on, shall we, to the South Sydney Rabbitohs, looking to do better than last year's 9 wins. 11.5, where you going?
11.5, I'm going under. Like in theory, they signed Robbie.
Cuts to Robbie Farah.
They signed Robbie Farah. They got Greg Inglis. They got Adam Reynolds. They got the Burgess brothers. But again, like you just need, like Robbie Farah at the moment isn't winning your premiership at hooker. I just can't see that happening, and
neither was Cam McInnes.
And he's not going to help the Dragons. So
no, well, not to win a premiership anyway. Yeah, I don't know what it is, because they've got all the star power there, don't they? They've got, but I mean, Inglis is a bit older as well. Should we say that? Farah's definitely a bit older. I'm not 100% that they're a team that's just like, I don't know. They just seem to be missing something. Don't you reckon?
Well, you've hit the nail on the head there, and I can't pinpoint what it is, but they just do seem to be.
They're just not that sexy. They're not that exciting. I don't know.
No. How about your Dragons?
Yeah, Dragons are next. Well, obviously they're gonna, 10 wins last season, pushed it close to the top 8, but fell short. Obviously they're gonna do better than 8.5, aren't they?
No, they're going under.
Oh, harsh. Nene McDonald is a try-scoring machine, matey.
Oh, yeah, he is.
Paul Vaughan, Tarek Sims just going to eat up those meters.
You got reasonably soft forward pack. You got Gareth Widdop in your halves. Let's stop the depression. Let's move on to the Roosters.
Yeah, okay. The Roosters. Only won 6 games last year. They were bloody terrible. But they also had their fair share of dramas. Mitchell Pearce missed a few games. 12.5. That's a big jump, don't you reckon?
That's a huge jump, and I've got them going under as well.
I get the feeling that's one of those like big market teams. Everyone likes to bet on them, so set it a little bit higher and entice them.
Yeah, they've got some great players, but a lot of their dudes are also injury prone, and I just can't see the Roosters fielding their strongest team enough to get over 10 wins. Let alone 12.5, so mandatory under.
Mandatory under. They're just, yeah, Yeah, Roosters. Everyone sort of anticipates the Roosters to be, because they are one of the biggest market teams out there, arguably second below the Broncos, but I don't know, maybe Melbourne would argue that. But you know what they say about the Melbourne Storm? Victoria is just not a rugby league state. Bit of a dumb cliche, but anyway.
Well, that's why they get their talent from Queensland and Aotearoa.
Yeah, guess what? Guess what? They're doing fine with the player recruitment. Finally, there's one more team, the West Tigers. Did it at 11 last time. Narrowly missed out again on the back of a trio of young guns. Young injury-prone guns, shall we say, as well. 10.5 is what's been set here, so roughly about even with what they did last year. Can they repeat it?
Yeah, they're going over. They're going into the top 8, and this is the year where I think you see Tedesco, Moses, and Brooks really click. Like last year, Moses was fantastic, but Brooks was a bit hit and miss. And I think this year it's going to be
Tedesco was great.
Yeah, this year it's going to be Brooks that really stands up, and Moses and Tedesco will operate at the same level, but it'll be Brooks who really stands up and controls the ship.
Well, what you said about the Penrith Panthers sort of needing that consolidatory season when you've got that many young guys coming through, the Tigers have had that already. So the Tigers are coming out the other end of that.
Yes. And they have a forward pack where they might not be a big name forward pack, like they've only really got Aaron Woods, but they got guys who just go about doing their business, no fuss. Elijah Taylor at lock offers something different. He's not the powerful ball-carrying lock, but he's a playmaker, good hands, and I think they're gonna. I think the way the NRL's going with speed and dynamic skill, flair, I think that's working in the Tigers' favour this season.
Elijah Taylor was such a great player, like as he was breaking through at the Warriors. It's kind of weird to see him jump around a little bit, like he's at the Panthers, didn't really stick, and
well, I think he's
a
found
player.
a home. He's found a home.
Yeah,
with the Tigers.
He could have a huge season.
Yeah.
He's a dude that plenty, and the Tigers haven't really lost anyone, so I can see them making the 8 for sure. I can. I've got a couple other ones here that we might want to any try scoring. I've scribbled down the top 10 for try scoring odds and Dally M odds. So you've got Rapana Vunivalu. This is in descending order from number 1 favourite downwards. Rapana's top favourite for top try scorer. Vunivalu, Semi Radradra, James Tedesco, Corey Oates, Bevan French, Addo Carr, Felt, Watini Zalesniak, and then Valentine Holmes coming out at 10th. Any picks there? Any smokies?
I'd put Sean Johnson in that category because I think...
try scorers.
Yeah, try scorers, because I think there's so many other guys are going to be doing a lot in that team for Sean Johnson. Like, you got Foran, you got tuivasa-sheck, you got Luke, as I said, you got forwards, you got Carter, you got instead of everyone looking at Sean Johnson, the other teams are going to have to look throughout that Warriors side, and then Sean Johnson will be able to be a bit more potent and
skip on through. Yeah, not bad. I like, for no valid reason, I like the idea of Corey Oates.
Yep.
He scores a lot of tries. And then, just finally, before we finish, we'll look at the Dally M favourites as well. So we've got Jonathan Thurston, Cooper Cronk, Cameron Smith, 1, 2, and 3. Pretty stock standard there. Probably the same first 3 that we've had before the last 5, maybe even 10 seasons. Followed then, interestingly, in 4th by Matty Moylan, Anthony Milford as well, Jared Hayne. Stunningly, Bryce Cartwright is in the top 10 for Dally M odds, and Corey Norman, Sean Johnson 9th, and then there's 1, 2, 3, 4 fellas tied for 10th. They are Tamalolo, RTS, Tedesco, and Maloney.
I would suggest that if the Warriors do really, 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 really well, that Roger Tuivasa will win the Dally M, but I think that this is the year of Jonathan Thurston.
He already has the record, doesn't he, for the most of these?
Mate, we've seen Tom Brady just etch himself in the greatest quarterback ever, and I think we're going to see it with Jonathan Thurston.
Well, I tell you what, if that happens, there's just the noise coming out of NRL media is going to be, let's use the word fawning.
And undeservedly so.
Yeah, fair enough.
The dude is a wizard.
He's the bloody greatest. He's the next immortal. Unless Cameron Smith retires before him. It's a bit of a weird one, that it's like the Hall of Fame for Hall of Famers. something that only the Aussies do. But, hey, big season ahead.
Big season, mate. It's the year of Jonathan Thurston, and it's the year of the Warriors. I'm covering my bases.
And it's the year of Josh Adokar, and it's the year of, who was it, Luke Brooks, and the year of, you said the year of Gareth Whittape, that's what you said, was?
No, I said Gareth Whittape's going to have to go back to the Super League.
Well, when Ben Hunt comes, he might actually have to, so...
Hey, it's a possibility, Wildcard.
It's actually, he's the club captain, but it's not off the cards. So let's recap just quickly. We got the Broncos going under 14.5. We got the Raiders going over 12.5. We got the Bulldogs under 11.5. Sharks 12.5 going over. Titans going over 11.5. Seagulls 9.5 and over. Storm 15.5 and over. Probably looking at another minor premiership if that's the case. Warriors 13.5 and over. Newcastle Knights are not going to make it to 4.5 because they're terrible. Cowboys 15.5 going over as well, challenging them Stormies. Eels under 11.5. Panthers under 15.5. That's a hefty number. Rabbitohs 11.5 also going under. Dragons going under 8.5. Roosters going under and completely unreasonable 12.5. And the Tigers itching over 10.5. That's what we got, Doc. How's that?
That's fantastic, mate. We'll
have to revisit it in 9 months.
I was going to say, I look forward to lapping up my predictions.
It all starts on the weekend. It's Thursday night, actually, isn't it?
Thursday night footy.
It's Sharks and Broncos. Bloody looking forward to it. I'll catch you on the couch, eh?
I'll catch you there. Adios. Peace.
Adios.